Okay, so bones,
Yeah.
all right, they're not exactly the first thing that comes to mind when you think fascinating.
We'll get ready to be surprised.
I am. That's why we're doing this deep dive to uncover the weird and wonderful world hidden within our skeletons. And we're not going at it alone.
Right. We've got a textbook chapter here, chapter 6, bones to be exact.
Yeah.
Plus, there's this really cool article from a university biology website called, let me see, Bone Anatomy. Oh, and a whole section from an open source anatomy textbook all about bone structure and function.
A veritable bone bonanza.
Ugh.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with the basics. What are bones made of? I mean, it sounds like a simple question, but
You'd be surprised. Most people think of bones like that dried up skeleton in biology class.
yeah, kind of creepy.
Totally. But living bone is a totally different story. It's dynamic, it's constantly changing. One of our sources even called it a composite material.
Composite material like what, fiberglass?
Exactly. Or reinforced concrete. You've got different materials working together to create something stronger and more resilient than either one could be on its own.
Okay, now that is interesting. So what exactly goes into this bone-building recipe? What makes them so strong?
Well, the key ingredient is a mineral called hydroxyapatite. It's a type of calcium phosphate.
Calcium, right? Makes sense.
And that's what gives bone its incredible strength. Get this, ounce for ounce, bone is stronger than steel in resisting compression.
Whoa, stronger than steel. Seriously. Okay, now I'm picturing myself as some kind of superhero with unbreakable bones.
Well, not quite unbreakable.
Yeah.
See, if bones were just mineral, they'd be brittle, like snap in half brittle.
Oh, right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
There's got to be something that gives them some flexibility, right?
Exactly. Enter collagen. It's a protein that forms this like flexible framework. It weaves itself in and around those hard mineral crystals.
So it's like the rebar in concrete, adding that extra strength and preventing it from cracking under pressure.
Perfect analogy. That combination of strength and flexibility is what allows our bones to support our weight, take impacts, and still be light enough to allow movement.
Wow, our bodies are amazing. Okay, so we've got roughly, 206 bones, all made with this super strong, flexible material. That's a lot of bone.
Actually, that 2 and a 6 number, that's just for adults. Babies are a different story.
Oh, how so?
They have way more bones, something like 300.
Wait, we lose bones as we grow. That seems counterintuitive. Shouldn't it be the other way around?
It's all about strategy. Those extra bones in babies, they're softer, more flexible, makes it easier to, make a grand entrance into the world.
Ah, the birth canal. Makes sense.
Right. Then as we grow, a lot of those bones fuse together. It's actually crucial for stability and strength as we learn to walk and, not just flop around.
So it's like our skeletons are literally getting themselves ready to handle the workload of being a fully grown human. And speaking of handling a workload, I feel like most people only think about the obvious functions of bones, like support, protection.
The basics, right.
Exactly. But our research turned up some lesser-known roles that are pretty mind-blowing.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the most vital functions is happening deep inside our bones, in the bone marrow. It's called hematopoiesis.
What now? Hold on, let me guess. It's got to be something with blood, right?
Nailed it. Hematopoiesis is the process of making new blood cells.
Uh-huh.
Red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, all those essential parts of blood are constantly being produced inside certain bones.
Wow. So our bones aren't just scaffolding, they're practically life-giving factories. I'm telling you, this deep dive is already changing how I see my own skeleton.
And we're just getting started. Bones also play a crucial role in mineral balance.
Calcium, right? It's always drink your milk for strong bones. But there's more to it than that, isn't there?
Way more. Our bodies need calcium for everything. Muscle contractions, nerve impulses, even our heartbeat relies on it. And guess what acts like this giant calcium bank?
Let me guess. Our bones.
Bingo. They store this massive amount of calcium. And when our bodies need a little extra, like during a workout, they tap into that bone bank, releasing calcium into the bloodstream.
Okay, now that is some serious multitasking. It's
Oh.
like our bones are the unsung heroes of our internal systems working behind the scenes to keep everything running. But to accomplish all of that, the actual structure of a bone can't be simple, right?
You're definitely on the right track. The inside of a bone is way more complex than most people realize. To really understand how it all works, we need to talk about compact bone and spongy bone.
Okay, I have to ask who comes up with these names. Because spongy bone almost sounds, soft.
And it kind of is, but not in the way you'd think.
Okay, good to know.
It's definitely not like a kitchen sponge or anything.
That's what I was picturing.
It's still super strong, just structured differently. More like a honeycomb, you know?
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this.
Like if you squeezed a stress ball, it's firm, but it still gives a little, right?
Yeah.
That internal structure helps distribute force, makes it more resilient.
Ah, so spongy bone is like a natural shock absorber.
Exactly. It's designed to withstand stress and impact from multiple directions, which makes sense when you think about it.
So it's all about strategic design. Spongy bone might sound delicate, but it's actually an engineering marvel. But what about compact bone? That sounds like the total opposite.
Totally different. Compact bone forms that hard outer layer of most bones. It's built for pure strength and durability.
I could see that.
Like imagine a skyscraper. It needs to be able to withstand crazy amounts of pressure and weight.
So that's compact bone, super strong, super dense.
Right. One of our sources described the microscopic structure of compact bone as being made up of these things called osteons.
Osteons. Okay, now we're getting into some serious anatomy territory. What are those?
Picture tiny cylindrical structures packed tightly together.
Tightly packed, okay.
Kind of like a bundle of straws running along the length of the bone.
Okay, I'm with you.
And here's the cool part. Each of those straws has a central canal for blood vessels and nerves to travel through.
So it's like a bustling city inside our bones. No wonder they're considered living tissue. There's so much going on in there.
Right. It's delivering nutrients, keeping everything connected. And these osteons, they're not just randomly arranged either. They're aligned along the lines of stress that the bone typically experiences.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Form follows function, right?
Exactly. So they're in the perfect position to resist bending and breaking forces. Think about it. Every time you take a step, your femur, your thigh bone, is handling an incredible amount of weight and pressure.
And I never even realize it.
It's incredible. It's all thanks to the ingenious design of compact bone that it can handle those forces day in and day out.
Okay, now I understand why compact bone gave its name. But if both types of bone are so strong, compact, and spongy, how do bones even grow? I mean, we start as babies with these tiny skeletons, and somehow they develop into something that can support our adult weight. That's a pretty amazing feat.
It really is when you think about it. And it's easy to overlook how incredible it is because it's happening all the time.
It's true. We just take it for granted.
One of our sources described it like building a skyscraper from the inside out.
That's a great analogy.
Right, starting with a cartilage framework.
So we actually start with more cartilage, which is more flexible, and then gradually replace it with bone. Why not just start with bone?
Well, think of it this way. Starting with cartilage gives us a blueprint, a flexible foundation that can change and adapt as we grow. Plus, cartilage is lighter than bone, which is like essential for babies who are still developing those motor skills.
Makes sense. So over time, that cartilage gets replaced with bone, right? That's that ossification process I've heard about.
You got it. And it's
Oh.
not magic, although it kind of feels like it.
Seriously?
Special cells called osteoblasts are the key players here.
Osteoblasts. So these are our bone builders.
Exactly. Like
Sure.
tiny construction workers moving in and depositing new bone material where the cartilage used to be. Think of them like bricklayers, carefully building up the bone layer by layer.
Wow, that's incredible. So we've got these little bone builders working away throughout our childhood. What triggers them to, like, start and stop?
It's this whole complex interplay of things, hormones, nutrition, even the stresses we put on our bones.
Okay, now that is interesting.
For example, when we exercise, especially weight-bearing exercises, we're actually creating these tiny microfractures in our bones. Don't worry, they're not harmful.
Okay, good to know.
But those tiny fractures, they signal to the osteoblasts that it's time to reinforce those areas, making the bones even stronger.
That's amazing. So our bodies are designed to strengthen and adapt based on the demands we put on them. It's like our bones are listening.
In a way they are. And it's not just about building new bone. There's also this whole process of breaking down and removing old bone. That's where osteoclasts come in.
Osteoclasts. So we've got our bone builders and our bone dot breakers.
It sounds more dramatic than it is. It's not about destruction. Osteoclasts are crucial for bone remodeling. They break down old or damaged bone tissue, making way for that new, stronger bone to be laid down by the osteoblasts.
It's like a constant renovation project happening within our skeletons. We should get those osteoblast tiny hard hats.
Right, and it's this dynamic balance between bone formation and bone resorption that's happening all the time, constantly adapting to our needs and keeping our bones healthy and strong throughout our lives.
This whole process is blowing my mind. But I do have a question about the remodeling part. How exactly do our bones know where to add more bone or where to remove it? Is it just random?
Definitely not random. It's incredibly precise. Our bones are constantly responding to the stresses and strains we put on them. Areas that experience more stress, like, say, the bones in our legs and feet when we walk or run those, tend to become denser and stronger over time.
So it's like our bodies have this built-in feedback system, telling our bones where they need to, like beef up.
Exactly. Our bones are constantly adapting to make sure they're strong enough to handle whatever we throw at them.
And we just go about our lives clueless. That's incredible. So this bone remodeling is happening all the time?
All the time, although it does slow down as we age, but even more reason to keep those bones moving.
Makes sense. Our bones are always working, responding, adapting. Speaking of amazing adaptations, I read about something called a green stick fracture, which is apparently more common in kids. It almost sounds cute, but something tells me it's not.
Yeah, cute isn't really the right word.
Figured as much.
A green stick fracture is a type of incomplete fracture where the bone bends and cracks but doesn't break all the way through.
Incomplete. So, still a fracture, just not like a full break.
Exactly. You know how a young tree branch is flexible?
Yeah, it'll bend and splinter, but not snap completely.
Exactly. Children's bones have a higher proportion of that collagen we talked about earlier, so they're more flexible, which means they're more resistant to complete fractures.
That's actually a relief to know, considering how often kids seem to bounce back from, well, everything.
Right, their bones are incredible.
That's wild. And here I thought my kid's superpower was just selective hearing. Turns out they've got super bones too. Okay, this is all so fascinating. It really makes you appreciate the incredible design and resilience of our skeletal system.
It really does.
We've got this intricate framework of bones, large and small, all working together to hold us upright, protect our organs, and allow us to move through the world. And we never even think about it.
It's a testament to the power of evolution, you know?
Absolutely.
And the incredible complexity of the human body. Even though we often take them for granted, our bones are constantly at work, adapting, responding to our every move.
Well said. And to think, we've only just scratched the surface of what there is to know about bones. It's like uncovering this hidden world within ourselves. So, after diving deep into bone basics, what's next on our skeletal adventure?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground already,
We have.
but there's still so much more to uncover.
Right. Like what?
Well, for instance, we haven't even touched on the fascinating world of bone diseases and injuries.
Well, right. Things like osteoporosis, right?
Exactly. Osteoporosis, which weakens bones, affects millions of people worldwide. It's a perfect example of why understanding our bones and keeping them healthy throughout our lives is so important.
Absolutely. So we've talked about how bones are constantly remodeling and adapting, but are there things we can do to support that process as we age? Or is it just a downhill battle from here?
Definitely not a downhill battle.
Okay, good.
Our sources really emphasized a few key things. A balanced diet, rich in calcium and vitamin D, both crucial for bone health, and of course, regular weight-bearing exercise.
There it is again. Exercise. So all those times my gym teacher told me it was good for my bones, they weren't kidding.
They were not. It's not just about building muscles, it's about maintaining the strength of our entire skeletal system.
So it's never too late to start incorporating some bone-healthy habits into my routine.
Never too late. Trust me, every little bit helps. The effort you put in today can make a big difference down the road.
I love that. Taking care of our skeletons so they can keep taking care of us. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of bones, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I think the most important takeaway here is that our bones aren't just inert structures. They're dynamic, living organs that play a vital role in our overall health and well-being. We often take them for granted, until something goes wrong. But when we understand how they work, their complexity, their adaptability, their resilience, it gives like a whole new appreciation for the incredible machinery that is the human body.
It's true. I feel like I'm seeing my own skeleton in a whole new light.
Right. It's pretty amazing stuff when you really think about it.
We started this deep dive wanting to go beyond just the basics of bones. And I think we've definitely achieved that. We covered so much, from bone composition and structure to all those amazing functions we never knew about.
It's been quite the journey.
It really has. And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this bone bonanza.
I think so.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating world of bones. Until next time, remember to appreciate the incredible strength and resilience within you, because you are full of bones, and bones are awesome.